morning, everyone. Welcome to Self Care Saturday.
Good
Happy
morning.
Good,
Saturday.
good
Happy
morning. Good morning.
Saturday. Happy Holy Saturday.
Yes. Thank y'all
Yes,
for joining
yes.
us once again. So, we are going to stream this episode live, but we are coming to you recorded. So, we will be in the comment section if y'all have comments and ask questions. But we won't be able to answer your comments on this video, okay? Because this is recorded, but we will be live in the comments section. But to remind you where you are and who I am, this is Self Care Saturday, in which we talk about anything that can encourage you to engage in self care. My name is Latanya Brumfield. I'm a life coach and nurse. I am the principal coach at Always Up Coaching, and this show is brought to you by Always Up Coaching. We invite you to go to alwaysupcoaching.com, click book a free discovery call, and experience 1 hour of free life coaching with one of us. And now I would like to introduce you to my associate coaches, Lacole Smith and Laverne Wright. Lacole.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. My name is Lacole Smith, and I'm a life coach and an author coach. So, whenever you're wanting to experiment with your thoughts that you have within you and want to bring those thoughts to life, contact us. Like she say, book a free discovery call. You can actually book with all three of us, and we are here and happy to help.
Awesome, Laverne.
And good morning. Hey, y'all. I'm Laverne Wright. I am a registered nurse and I'm a clinical educator. I'm also a life coach, part of Always Up Coaching. I can help you in any kind of career advancement, leadership skills. I am here to help also with life. So, book a free discovery call with us. Come on, you guys, and grow and go up.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Both you can follow both of these ladies on their socials. If you go to AUPC main page where we're streaming, there's a pin post at the top which has a freebie on it, but it also has all of our links to all of our socials as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about today? We've been coming around with all the aspects of self care, and this is the last aspect that we're going to overview before we go into some more specific topics. And today we're talking about spiritual self care. So, what is spiritual self care? Spiritual self care is anything that you believe connects you to something more than yourself, a higher power, and often people say that that thing gives them comfort, right, in life, right? So self care can be very individual for different people. That's why there's no specific definition to it. It's doing the things that bring care and love to your spirit, right? Because remember, self care is love, right? Self love. So more recently in our AUPC book club, we read a book called The Power of Meaning by Emily Esfahani.
Really good book.
And we do believe that finding meaning in life is spiritual self care. Because when you find meaning in life, you're going to be operating and doing the things that care for your spirit, that engage your spirit, that bring comfort to your spirit. So, using that book as context for discussing spiritual self care, we are going to go through the 4 pillars of meaning that Emily Esfahani described in her book. So, we're going to go through those 4 pillars, talk about them, what they are, have a little brief discussion on them, and then we're going to go into how each of those pillars relates to self care, spiritual self care in particular. Okay? So, the first pillar that she describes is the pillar of belonging, and that means belonging to something, And she said belonging is essential to human life, but social isolation in the world and individualism are on the rise. So a lot of people are struggling with meaning because they are unable to find a sense of belonging. Um, so, what are some ways that people can find belonging, and what are some reasons people don't? Y'all think?
Well, I think some people are natural introverts, and it's hard for them to talk to people, or because or just go out and do things because they're so, homebody. They're so afraid to get their feelings hurt, you know, or maybe they were an extrovert and they got hurt by someone, which made them turn to being an introvert. So, you definitely have to um, put it in the balance, I guess you can say, because it's kind of hard sometimes for people to come out of their shell, and they have to trust you in order to want to engage with you. So for them, belonging might be a little, more difficult for than
Oh, being feeling a sense of belonging is so important to some people in particular. We all know, on social media, some people are at home thriving, right? Because they're able to find a sense of belonging without physically being around people. But other people need that physical presence of people, and people went into depression, right?
Right.
People, um,
Right.
were physically ill, even, you know what I'm saying, to the point because they needed that human energy, and not everybody needs that. And that's why we talk about self care being so individual.
Right.
Um,
And And I think that the sense of belonging gives you a sense of purpose in life. I believe that we are all spiritual beings, and that, that gives you a purpose, what tribe, as a family, you can be an aunt, you can be a mother, you can be a daughter. And when we lose that sense of belonging, it other things in our health break down. And it's been proven in studies that have been proven. It's been studies with raising children that don't have, that sense of belonging, or that sense of you know, closeness, to where they cannot thrive. So I think,
mhm,
the sense of belonging is very important, because
mhm,
um as a human being, we have to have that purpose. I can, your purpose is different than mine, but my purpose may be getting up every morning, putting my child on the bus, or putting a neighbor's child on the bus. And that gives me that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose. So I think that's really important in that book. About
yeah,
how different tribes, or like we always talk about your tribe, but different people came together to support one another. And definitely with COVID, everybody kind of not in a sense had that belonging, like, you had,
mhm,
what I want to say, sense of self with
mhm,
others, to where
mhm,
you were isolated. So it kind of broke down. People started getting depressed, illnesses came up. So sense of
mhm.
belonging meant
Yes.
a lot.
I know we always talk about how self care is so interrelated. In that book, she did talk about how you can be physically ill from not having a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
She talked about the neonates, um, and I can't remember the exact context in which she talked about. There are some neonates who were one on one bonded with a nurse for a while before they went to an orphanage, and right, and they
Mhm.
were
Mhm.
thriving when they were with that one on one person that was feeding them. But when they went to the
Right.
orphanage, where they were spending lots of time in cribs, being barely held, and how they got ill. They got physically
Mhm.
ill from without having close
Yeah.
contact of another
Mhm.
human.
Mhm.
And so it just goes to show that what goes on in our spirit is so tied to what goes on in our physical health. And
Mhm.
that's very often, like, when something's going on with you physically and you can't pinpoint it, sometimes you got to turn within, like what may be going on inside within me.
Mhm.
um So belonging is very important, very important. Feeling a sense of
Yeah.
belonging. If you don't feel like you belong to anything, it's loneliness is the precursor to death, in my opinion.
Yes, it is.
Because it can send you on a spiral. It really can,
Mhm.
a negative spiral, to be
And
specific.
sometimes it's easy to fall into that spiral. Sometimes, like Nicole's book, is one thing. I read her book, and just some of the things that she's been through, I've been through. And it makes me feel okay, I'm not the only one. So
Hmm.
that's how I feel like sometimes people can fall into that, you know, depression of them just being the only one and not belonging, because they believe it's
Hmm.
nobody else. So people like Nicole that get out and share their stories, that is just mind
So
blowing,
important.
because it
So
brings
important.
those in that just felt like they just did not belong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then
that's
and so in my book, it kind of gives people the opportunity to say, I am a part of something that somebody else is dealing with, like Laverne said. You definitely don't want to feel like you're the only person going through something, because at that point it takes you to other levels, which we'll discuss later on the show. But you definitely need that connection with people. Um, Sometimes we isolate ourselves because we don't want people to know what we're going through. So it's not always that people are not trying to help you. Sometimes you're just pushing those people away because you're afraid that they're going to see the true thing that's going on within you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something that, people need to get that information out so that they can help people, because
Yes.
if they know that somebody else is going through it and made it, then it takes you to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes.
makes you feel, like you say, it makes you feel like you belong to something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
Mhm.
So
It brings
yeah.
you out of the darkness into the
Yes.
light. I love it.
Yes.
Hmm.
And that does tip into our next few. We're giving you a preview of some of these pillars up here. But
Yeah.
so the second pillar she mentions is a pillar called purpose. And purpose is this big goal or intention in life. It's not one thing, but it's an overall theme of what you do in your life and the activities you intake. She describes it as a far reaching goal that involves some kind of contribution to the big world, right? The wider world. And she talked about how people discover their purpose. And me myself, I fully related to that. And you discover your purpose by being around people and doing, right? And
Mhm.
so you can't find your purpose without finding a sense of belonging, right?
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
if you find your purpose being around people, you got to have a sense of belonging. So it's interconnected and they're kind of stepwise, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
got to have one before you can have the next. So
Mhm.
purpose is a result of having close connections and feeling a sense of belonging.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Purpose is really, in the beginning. Before I wrote my book, I I knew that I had a purpose. I knew that I had a calling. I knew God wanted me to write a book. The book was supposed to be out at this point 8 years ago, but I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I didn't feel like anybody would want to know what I was going through. So even though God put this in perspective and He gave me the things to talk about, I was afraid that I wouldn't fit in, that I didn't have a purpose, that nobody was going to want to listen to Lacole. I'm just a person walking around on the street. Nobody wants to know my story.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
God brings you to it, He will bring you through it because He put that purpose in your life. And my purpose, I know, is to help others move through whatever they're going through, whether it's through my books or through life coaching or through author coaching. Because if you put it on paper and express yourself, that's a purpose. If you
Mhm.
Mhm.
talk to somebody about what's going on with you, that's a purpose. And you
Mhm.
have to realize and know that the little things that we do is all in God's purpose.
Right.
Whether you know it or not,
Mhm.
Latanya been in her purpose for years, and she probably didn't realize it at first.
Mhm.
Giving a little advice here and a little advice there. It's our purpose, but we think, oh, they always coming and asking me questions, but you're still walking in God's purpose.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And that's a major part of spiritual self-care. And I was just thinking, if anybody, I have an email attachment that is a scripture that I base my life on, and base my work on, and I'm going to read it to you. And this base is from Romans 12, and is I want to say verse 1 through 2, and this is a message version. And it says, it's entitled "Place Your Life Before God," and it reads, "So here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering, embracing that what God does for you. It's the best thing you could do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to the culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out, readily recognizing what he wants from you and quickly responding to it. And that's one scripture that I definitely base my purpose, my life, because it was a time that I was asking God, what do you want me to do? What is my purpose? And I had to sit still and realize that I'm right here walking in my purpose and like meeting people like Latanya, Lacole, and I have other mentors that have spoken into my life. And you may be sitting there searching for like, what do you want me to do, God? I'm here. And a lot of times you sitting there, like you said, Nicole, walking in your purpose, but you have to accept it and realize it and know. And I think that's one way I'm so into always up coaching, because we're here, if you're struggling, because I have struggled trying to find what my purpose is, and then I'm sitting right there in God, and you just got to be still. And sometimes you need
Mhm.
somebody to coach
Yeah.
you and give you, lead you to that way and be open
Mhm.
enough to be able to accept that, so
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think,
you really have to tap into the things that bring you joy. A lot
right.
of times we are ignoring those things that bring us joy because we think of it as
Mhm.
selfishness,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But self care is essential
Mhm.
for engaging in our purpose. That's why we
Mhm.
talk about it, right?
Mhm.
So often those things that bring you joy are very closely tied, if not your purpose,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed giving people advice.
Mhm.
People would come to me and be like, "Oh, here I go again," blah blah blah. And I was like, "No, like I want you to benefit from my life experience.
Right.
I want you to benefit from my wisdom and knowledge. Some of this stuff was hard won. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? I had
Exactly.
to go through a lot to get this, and I'm
Mhm.
not going to let um I'm going to let other people benefit from it,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So it's in that pleasure that I found
Mhm.
my purpose. The
Exactly.
pleasure of helping people, right?
Mhm.
So one thing about me was I was a lot of an introvert and very quiet. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I couldn't find my purpose early in life because I wasn't engaging in it enough, right?
Right. It's
But
me.
when I came out of my closet and started being more talkative with people, started
Mhm.
making purposeful efforts to get
Right.
engaged in making relationships, interpersonal relationships, it let me operate in my purpose, right?
Mhm. Right.
And then as that over the years, as that became bigger and bigger, and there's more people that I'm able to impact, it can be seen easier,
Right.
right? So
Exactly.
so move toward those urges you have in your spirit, spiritual
Right.
self-care,
And
caring for yourself by following the urges of your spirit
right. And
can lead you
Latonya,
to your purpose.
I bet you had a lot of people coming to you saying, "Oh, yeah, you do really well with this." And you would think, "Okay, I'm not." But if you have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people coming to you saying, "Okay, you do really well with this," even though it's sometimes you have to
Mm-hmm.
convince yourself, or sometimes you have to,
Mm-hmm.
change your perspective on
Mm-hmm.
things, because you may
And you
look at
just have to
it as just
broaden
being
your
a job.
mind. Be
Mhm.
mindful and broaden your mind. My thing was people would come, they were like, "Oh, you'd be an excellent life coach. You'd be an excellent
Mhm.
psychiatrist. You'd be an excellent counselor."
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, I'm not going back to school to be a psychiatrist and counselor. And I'm like, what is a life coach even?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Like, because we can't, our vision is narrowed, right?
Right,
A lot of
exactly.
times,
And that's where a
it's
life coach
just, that's
comes
how we're
in,
designed.
offering
Mm-hmm.
those perspectives, those broadening your horizon. So I think that's
Absolutely.
that's very good.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Once we
Yeah.
start opening our
And
minds to the possibilities, the sky's the limit.
Exactly.
I knew Latanya when she was an introvert. So the that's how you know that you're in your purpose, because I have seen the change over the years. We could barely get two words out of Latanya, and now look at her. She's teaching people, she's helping people. She mentored me, and got me on the road to being a life coach, and tapping more into my purpose. But if you would have seen her years ago, you'd been like, "Ain't no way she's gonna talk to anybody." But she was very much an introvert. But at the same time, she still was willing and able to help people. Even then, she just didn't tap into it. We have to learn to tap into, and for myself, I was kind of standoffish back then too, because I wanted to make sure that before I give you a part of my personal self, that I'm not gonna get hurt. You know, I always had a wall up. From being younger, I had a wall up. But as time goes on, you realize I don't have to put that wall up, because God is gonna protect you from the things that He don't want to come into your path anyway. and you can't be protected from everything all the time,
Mhm.
so you definitely have to want to grow. We all need to grow. We all need to
Right.
do better, and
Mm-hmm.
we have to want it.
Yes.
Latanya
Yes.
didn't know that she wanted to walk in her purpose at that. We were young. We didn't know anything. And we've been friends for years, and I have watched her grow, and it is amazing. Laverne, I've known you for years. I have watched y'all grow, and it is amazing the things that God is doing with our lives. We
Yes.
cannot. I just can't imagine where we would have been if we wouldn't have decided to listen
Yes.
and be obedient. You
Yes.
know.
Mhm.
And I think us coming together. I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna say something else, and we're gonna move on. We're gonna stay on time today, y'all. Yeah, or else this might become a two-parter. And if it does, that's okay. This might become a two-parter.
That's
Yeah,
good.
so we might stop at some point, like at the 45-minute point. But um, I think us three coming back together after so much time is a metaphor for purpose evolved and purpose in action.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
when we met, we're all just starting life, trying to figure it out for ourselves, trying to do
Right.
careers, jobs, school, whatever. But then we've evolved past the point of having kids, having
Right.
adult kids, and we're in a different phase of our
Yeah.
life. So your purpose evolves over time, right?
It does. It does.
And it evolves because who's in your life, those people that are in your circle, the people you belong to, do change and
Mhm.
evolve, right? Their
Right.
needs change, and your perspective of the world starts to grow as well. So
Right.
your purpose evolves, and that's why we are where we are now, because we,
Mhm.
as human beings first, but then also as people who have purpose to help people, um
Mhm.
have come in, and we're together in this business, helping people.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I will say a lot of what keeps people from moving in their purpose, sometimes they see it, but the purpose can be very intimidating and scary. And I'm gonna give y'all an analogy, um, and it's an analogy for life too, because life is your purpose, right? That's how you know you're
Mhm.
living. People who can't say that they're living, right? It's because they're not operating in purpose. Okay.
Right.
So the very first time I
Right.
got on a real roller coaster, it was at Astro World, which was Six Flags in Houston back in the day. And I always took that roller coaster, and I knew I wanted to do it. I just had the urge to get on it, and I knew I wanted to do it. So the first time I got on a real roller coaster, I was sitting next to my mom, and I screamed and cried the whole time, y'all. It was the most horrible thing ever, right? But guess what? I still knew it was for me. So I got on a roller coaster again. And the second time, it wasn't as scary. The third time,
Yeah.
I'm screaming because I'm having fun, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you know your purpose, if you feel an urge, but it's scary to you, it won't always be scary.
Mhm.
It will become fun. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
anything that's new is uncomfortable. So just start
Mhm.
moving and stepping in it. Get a
Mhm.
friend, get a family member, get somebody close to you and hold their hand, because I probably
Mhm.
broke my mama's finger bones that day because I was screaming, "Mama," and she was like, "It's gonna be all right, baby. It's gonna be all right. It's okay. It's about to be over, baby." She probably
Yeah.
don't even remember that, but that was a very pivotal moment in my life, and I remember it
Right.
clear as day. And
Mhm.
my first life coach was my mom. I'm about to start crying because parents do not understand how little moments change your child's life.
That's
You
life.
know,
Right.
and that was a pivotal moment for me. Um,
Mhm.
so
That's
don't
good.
be scared. You're gonna feel an urge to do things that are gonna be scary, but
Mhm.
maybe bring along a friend, a life coach,
Mhm.
a family member, bring them
Mhm.
with you on that journey, right? They'll hold your hand just long enough so you can do it
Right.
by yourself. You can do it by
Right.
yourself. And now I can get on a coaster by myself, going upside down, twisting
Mhm.
around, doing all kinds of things. And, it's fun.
Mhm.
It's fun. And when it stops being fun, or if I experience one that's not fun, I just don't do that one, right? Because
Mhm.
I know that's not for me, right?
Mhm.
I.e., I got on a roller coaster a couple years ago, and I said I will never get back on that again. That was not fun,
Mhm.
right? So that is a metaphor for life and the things we do in life. They're
Right.
going to be scary. They're going to be intimidating, but they're also going to be exciting, fulfilling, rewarding, and bring joy.
Right, right, and that's where spiritual self care comes in. And I know your mom. We all didn't get a manual on taking care of kids, or
Mm-hmm.
being a parent. So we have that higher power. We look to. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very Important to,
Yes.
seek that higher power
Yes,
to
yes. And sometimes the
Exactly.
guide you
how,
and
like I
lead
said,
you.
I was holding my mom's hand, but sometimes the hand you need to hold is that of your higher power,
Always.
right?
Always.
And you know, because
Yes.
somebody will not, there will not be somebody always physically there to hold your hand. You
But
know,
see, your mama got
sometimes
that
you need a
connection.
spirit, you need the ultimate parent. You know,
Mhm.
it's the
Your
Lord
mama,
God. You know,
who your mom is connected to, connects you. So yes, definitely.
that's awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So this is gonna be our favorite one, y'all, and this is the one that's
Give
gonna
me
make me
that.
think we might have to do a part two.
Yeah.
Um, the next pillar of meaning is storytelling.
You kind of covered that.
So I coached a lot through storytelling. And Emily Esfahani in her book said that humans feel compelled to tell stories as a
Mhm.
way of
Mhm.
making sense
Mhm.
of their world and creating meaning in the events of life, right?
Mhm.
So we must
Yeah.
tell our stories
Mhm.
in order to move forward in anything, right?
Mhm.
Because we have to make sense about it, you know.
Right.
Um, I think we all have seen a moment in our those of us who have children or have been around children or been around young people or young adults where somebody was telling a story and they had a light bulb went off, right? You know, they're
Mhm.
telling you how they couldn't figure something out and they're like, oh, you know, there's that moment in which a light bulb goes off. And every time we tell a story, we are learning about that situation when we tell it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I
And I
will
like.
say, go ahead, Laverne.
I was just saying, I like how she said in that book, she compared it to two different people that had been through similar um, issues or traumas,
Mhm.
and how one thrived, as an adult, and one did not thrive. And all went back to how that person told their story, or even was allowed to tell their story. So it's how you frame it,
Mm-hmm.
in your mind, on how are you going to frame yourself as a victim, or are you going to frame yourself as an overcomer. So that's what we definitely need to look at, how I got through this, and thank God I got through this, or God, why did you let me go through this? So I think that
Mm-hmm.
plays a role on how we result from that, how we,
Mm-hmm.
live our lives
Mhm.
through that.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, we
Exactly.
tell the story and, you know, it takes time for us to process things subconsciously, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes we don't see the meaning of an event in our life until we make it to the other side. And by the other side, I mean, it may be years, it may be decades before we realize that that
Mhm.
thing, right? The roller coaster story I just told, like, you know, it's been
Yeah.
decades since that has happened,
Hmm. Hmm.
a lot of decades.
Right.
And so I didn't really find full meaning in that moment, right, of that story, but I remembered it, and there was a reason I remembered it because it was one of my pivotal moments in my life, right?
Hmm.
But now, later, I can find meaning. But you find meaning through telling the story, even if it's retelling it in your mind,
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
writing it on paper in a journal, etc. Right?
Yeah.
That's how we find meaning. I've had some traumatic events happen in my life, and one of them was, I had three kind of violent situations happen in or with me or around me in a like a 3.5 month period. And one of those things was being carjacked. And I remember when it happened,
Wow.
it was almost surreal, unreal. It starts by almost feeling like a third party situation.
Hmm.
Like, you
Like
know,
an out of
did
body
that really
experience.
happen to me?
Hmm.
Yes. Did that really happen to me? And so there's that immediately shock, right?
Hmm.
Of wow, what just happened, you know? And then that's a realization, right? Oh, it
Hmm.
did happen to me. I almost, you know, somebody had a gun on me, you know, I could have died, you know, this could have happened. You think about all the horrible things that could have came out of it, and you just start to process it. And then you start to process how you're feeling about it, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know,
Mhm.
I was very jumpy for a while, just like very, just like jumpy, especially when other a subsequent event happened.
Hmm.
Um, but just
PTSD.
like, you know, just like, you know, anytime I felt uncomfortable, I would just feel heat in my face, like I was having physical
Hmm.
responses to my emotions. And
Hmm.
you know, I started processing that stuff because I was like, Lord, I cannot live like this.
Hmm.
um and I refuse to live like this.
Hmm.
um and so I just started mentally processing it, and over time I learned that every time I told my story, I would find something comical about it.
Hmm.
There was different moments in the story that I find either comical or ironic, and it made me see and maybe be grateful about some things that happened through that
Right.
story, right? It made me realize that I had been saved,
Mhm. Mhm.
not almost killed, but saved,
Yes.
half empty,
Yeah.
half full. I was
Mhm.
seeing it as I almost got killed versus
Mhm. Victim or
I
overcomer.
was saved,
Mhm.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So storytelling reframes how you see your own story, and you
Mhm.
start on the outside of the story, then you're all up in it, and you end up on the outside of the story. So
Mhm.
now I could tell that carjacking story and think it's hilarious,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because I am not still that person with a gun on them,
Yeah.
right? If you continue to live in your story, right, you're always going to have those emotions, those thoughts, those feelings, and you are going to suffer, right?
Right. Mhm.
But when you come on the
Yeah.
other side of your story and you coming out of your story, you realize that you don't have to continue to experience everything that happened in that moment, that moment.
Mhm.
And the moment of time may be a few seconds of somebody saying, get out the car,
Mhm.
or it may be a period of months that you were going through something, right?
Mhm.
Maybe an illness, maybe grief,
Mhm.
maybe maybe we can name all kind of things, a breakup, you know.
Yeah.
You do
Mhm.
not have to continue to live in that state of feeling, right?
Mhm. Right.
And the more you learn how to come out of your things, the more resilience you build.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely.
That's just like for years I would tell my story about getting hit by two 18 wheelers. Um, I would cry. Every single time I would tell that story, I would break down. And I think because I was thinking of it as, like you said, as a near death experience. And
Mhm.
then when I realized that I went through that for a reason and a purpose,
Mhm.
that God had something
Right.
bigger for me, that God kept me here for a reason,
Right.
because, in that moment, I could have been gone. Most people, you can get hit by a car and be dead today. You can go out there, have a car accident, get hit by a car, and you're gone. I
Mhm.
got hit by two 18 wheelers at the
Mhm.
same time, and God kept me here because
Wow.
He had a
Amen.
purpose
God.
for my life. He
Yes.
he shielded and protected me,
Mhm.
and as I go back and I look at pictures from it, and I envision the things that happened, um, some things like Latonya say, it's comical because I can laugh about, I was fussing about my shoe coming off my foot, and I
Mhm.
wanted my shoe. So I can laugh about that. You know, you got hit by two 18 wheelers and you worried about a shoe. So in that moment, it was real to me because I always heard, if you have one shoe on, you put your parents in an early grave or whatever. So I wanted my other shoe on my foot for that reason.
Mhm.
Even in that moment, I was thinking about others. I
Mhm.
wasn't even thinking about what I just went through.
Right.
I was thinking about, I'm not trying to put my parents in an early grave, but yet I could have been in one myself.
Right. Exactly.
So that's how you know that it was a higher power.
Mhm.
And you don't want to stop your children from telling stories because you never know how that's going to help them get it out.
Oh.
If you make them sit there in that moment and they can't express themselves, then they go through life feeling like, I can't express myself. I can't speak for myself. I can't talk up for myself.
Mhm.
So you definitely don't want to take that from them. Even if they're 4 or 5 and they're trying to tell you something, you might not understand what they're saying. Rock with it,
Mhm.
Yes.
because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to shut them down, because once you shut them down, they will not open back up. And then that's when they turn to other people, the wrong people, and open up to them. And
Right.
then that's when you have to go through some things that you don't want to go through. So just be open to the storytelling. Like Latanya say, it might be a hard story, but eventually you're gonna find something comical in it. Eventually you're gonna find a purpose in it. And
Mhm.
then ask God to reveal what the purpose is, because we're gonna all go through something hard. We're gonna all go through something difficult. But in that moment, it's scary, it's hard, it's hurtful, it's
Mhm.
painful.
It
But
is.
joy is the other side of it. You
Yes.
just have to believe and trust.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
sitting here listening to both of y'all about your stories and just thinking on, we just talked about belonging, we just talked about purpose. To me, the storytelling is the most important part because it leads you to, that sense of belonging. It leads you to that purpose. So, it's very important to tell your story. And a lot of times, like Vicky, you said about your kids telling their stories, that broadens their horizon at the same time, because I think about my child, my youngest, and I remember we was riding in the car one day and she came up with this just elaborate story on uh, just how I think it was what did she say she saw a pirate in the sky or something like that. But I started thinking about,
Oh no.
Oh, I think we lost her.
Yeah, we lost her. She'll come back in a second.
Yeah, she'll come back in.
Yeah. But
Yeah, but
while we're waiting on her to come back and finish her story, I will say that kids have an urgency to tell stories, and that's how humans are. We are
yes,
designed to commune and share stories, right? And in every culture, you'll see a
my
mechanism for
backyard.
sharing stories. You are back. I'm gonna
Oh,
finish
okay.
this thought, and I'm gonna let you finish your story. I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you where you left
Okay.
off. In every
yes,
culture, there's a mechanism for telling stories. I was looking on the social media platforms last night, and it was a picture of Hawaiian men doing the hula, and somebody had superimposed some other type of music on top of it, not the music they were actually dancing to. And somebody was in the comment section and saying they were offended by it because this is the way they tell their stories. These
Mm-hmm.
very powerful, meaningful stories, and
Right.
to put another music on top of it is disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how important storytelling is to culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Laverne, you might just want to start over because I think you were just getting started on the story
Oh,
before
really?
you cut off.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
just thinking about Vicky when she was talking about her children telling their stories, and I just think about how my child told a story, and how it was just in detail and elaborate. And I just got to thinking, I was like, man, she really has an imagination. And as children we all had imaginations, but I think life kind of distorts that. As we go through life, it distorts that. And just only think about I mean, I often think about how God, my higher power, he has something in store for me that's so much way bigger than my imagination. And Tanya, we talked about this last night, what I can imagine. But just think about, being able to dream and being able to grow to something even bigger by rewriting your story or broadening your story and actually believing in that story. And I just, I don't know how it keeps coming back to what we do and what our purpose is as coaches. That's what we're doing. We're helping you to rewrite your story, to see, use your imagination, broaden your horizon. Just like you were a kid, you're thinking big. A lot of times as an adult we put everything in a box and we think really small, but you may need that person just to push you over. Like my child, I believe, like she said her story until I believed it. I'm like, yes, I can see the pirate in the sky. Yes, I can. Because she actually believed it. So,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need that person that actually believes in you and, tells you that you can, despite all the fears, despite all the traumas, and help you grow. But I think this kind of pulls us into, like I said, the storytelling kind of leads to the belonging, leads to the purpose. But like Vicky and Latanya said, it kind of transcends us to that higher level. And that's the next part. And I'm going to let Latanya take over and talk more about it.
Yeah.
That's the next
Yeah.
part.
Yes. When I talked about coming out on the other side, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that's the moment when you have transcended your story, right?
Right.
And that is the fourth pillar of meaning,
Mm-hmm.
transcendence. When you're able to take that belonging, that finding purpose,
Purpose.
and that storytelling, right? Being able to tell your
Wow.
story to others,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and you transcend to another level of being,
Mm-hmm.
and you transcend into meaning, right?
Right.
You have
Right.
found meaning at that point. You
Mm-hmm.
transcend.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to end it there because we have so much more. I don't want to
Definitely.
try to
That's
squeeze
good.
a little bit in this last 10-15 minutes. We're
Mm-hmm.
just going to make this a whole nother episode. So we're going to end it right there, y'all.
Okay.
But this
I'm
is what I'll
excited.
say before we go. Um, Lacole's book, if you want to read about her story, one of the many stories she has in her book about her surviving that car accident, the 18
Mm-hmm.
wheeler accident. I'm gonna link her book on. I'm gonna put a link to a post in the comment section that has a link to go to our website and get the book. Got to be careful with the links because Facebook. But so you'll be able to see that, and also there's going to be a link to The Power of Meaning by Emily Esfahani. So if you want to start reading that, it's a very impactful book. It's not a very long book, but it's very rich in meaning. I think anybody will read it and enjoy it, because everybody will read it and get something different out of it. So I will link both of those things somewhere in a post here that will go to where you can find those things. So we will see y'all next week for part 2, spiritual self-care. Well, actually, is it next week? Next week, we will not see you for part 2 of spiritual self-care. Next week, we will be live from the Baton Rouge Kidney Walk.
Yes,
we're supporting. We're Always Up Coaching is making 2 years old on the 11th. And we're supporting kidney disease. That's how we're celebrating. We're going to do the Baton Rouge Kidney Walk and support kidney disease.
Yes.
So we are going to be coming to you live from the Kidney Walk. If there is good weather, hopefully we're going to cross our fingers and say a prayer on that. And we're just going to will it to be. And we're going to talk about a little bit of physical self-care. And in particular, taking care of your kidneys,
right,
and also helping other people who already have kidney disease take care of themselves, right?
Exactly.
So join us next week. We are going to be live. We're going to be outside for the first time. I actually had to buy a special piece of equipment so we could all tie our mics in together, and I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
In the meantime, I'm actually going to put a link to a post in which you can support our raising funds for the Kidney
join
Walk.
our team. Come out with us.
Join our team. Exactly. You could join our team virtually if you're not local to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and support. And then, you get your own link so you can raise funds for our team. Yes. Or you can join and come walk with us for real, right? And if you're going to be there physically, or if you're not going to be there physically and want one of our T-shirts that we design, inbox me. Right, make a comment down below or something, and I'll get with you the details on getting a T-shirt. But please, I'm gonna put the link in another post, or actually once the video processes after the live, I can put it in the description. Of
or even if you can't, I think it's on our page, our Always Up Coaching page.
There's a couple posts there. Just go to our page, and you'll see the link to the Baton Rouge Kidney Walk, and you can go donate. Any amount is great. We set a goal of 500, and I am starting to think that is not ambitious enough, because we have very generous people who support us and follow us. Yes. So I'm probably going to raise the goal to 1,000, because I really believe in the people who are in our circle and that we belong to, and that belong to us. Right? I believe in that sense of belonging. So y'all, celebrate with us. Happy birthday, AUPC. AUPC's birthday is on April 11th, and that is also my birthday on April 11th. So donate in celebration of my birthday as well. Right. So any amount, $1, $2, $2,000.
What a great cause.
It's needed. It's needed.
Definitely.
So as we close, remember to follow all of our socials so you never miss an episode of Self-Care Saturday or Mental Health Monday. And I'm going to apologize. Mental Health Monday went up very late. I recorded it, but then it took like a half a day to upload. So that's the difference between doing it in live and, uploading it, right? They save their energy for the lives, uploading the lives. But I'm going to start a lot earlier doing it this time, so you'll actually get it on Monday and not, early Tuesday morning. Right. So join us on Monday. I don't know what we're doing, but we will be back with Mental Health Monday on Monday. But until then, y'all have an awesome weekend, a happy Easter. I hope you're surrounded by people you belong to and that belong to you, because it's so important.
And definitely get that spiritual self-care in.
Yes, absolutely.
Remember that we overcame and we will overcome.
Yes. All right.
Yes, definitely.
Bye-bye.
All right, y'all have a good day.
You cut out, Vicky.
I'll tell them. You have faith in yourself. Make sure you're having faith in yourself as well.
That's right. That's right. All right, y'all. Happy Saturday. See you next time. Bye bye.
Saturday. Enjoy.
Have a good one.
Safe.